En el Lente TV no se hace responsable de los comentarios emitidos por nuestros participantes. Bienvenidos a nuestra revista En el Lente TV.
Buenas, bienvenidos a En el Lente TV. Mi nombre es Cristian Abreu. Les estaré moderando por el día de hoy, entrevistando al candidato alcalde de la ciudad de Norwalk, el señor Vinny Chiquitano. Bienvenido. Welcome to our interview. So I'm going to start with some question about it. What did you do to make housing in Norwalk more affordable?
Okay. Well, before I start, thank you very much for having me today. I'm very humbled that you asked me to do this. It's really wonderful. As far as affordable housing in Norwalk goes, we need to have a broader package, and we need to have more of ability for people to come to Norwalk that seek the American dream to ultimately realize the American dream, and that'd be to purchase a home, and home ownership is a big aspect of it. So affordable housing in Norwalk needs to be directly examined, because right at this point we do not have enough affordable housing, and the buildings that we are building, some of the units are classified as affordable, but they're not really affordable. They're just cheaper than the more expensive apartments. The people that I know in the world that I live in still can't afford to pay $2,100, $2,400, $2,500 for a one-bedroom apartment. It's just not achievable for the average working person that's making $1,000 a week or $1,200 a week. And we have a lot of these people that come to our part of the world, to Norwalk, and they are attracted because we have the ability for them to work and make money, but it's just not enough. So we need to do more for our people in that income bracket to be able to afford an apartment in Norwalk. But affording an apartment also means that you're able to have money left over. That's the important thing. When my family came here and I was growing up, if you paid rent, you had to have extra money so you could save towards buying a home, which is the ultimate American dream. Many of the people I know, personally that I know that came to this country for the American dream, is not renting an apartment on the third floor. It's ultimately ending up with owning a home. And that needs to be the path that we need to go on. That's what we need to look at and examine. If we're going to continue building a strong community where residents are in charge, where they put down roots, where their family stays, where their children can grow up and stay, and that's the path we need to go on. We are not going on that path. The answer to everything is not $3,000 and $4,000 a month apartments, because it's not helping the people that live in our community, and it certainly isn't helping a whole facet of our community that comes here for the American dream and to work. So we need to do a much, much better job of creating that pathway. So to allow developers to just pay in a little bit of money into a fund to get out of having affordable housing, that program needs to end. They've had this program in place for a few years, and this fund in Norwalk has generated I think around $2 million the last meeting I sat in. That's not enough to do anything. You could barely build 4 apartments for that. So there seems to be no emphasis on how to help people really not only live in Norwalk, but thrive in Norwalk and be able to have the ability to stay in Norwalk the rest of their lives and to build equity and wealth in Norwalk. And that's the direction I want to put Norwalk in. That's the path I want Norwalk to go on.
So you say that today, for example, we have a subsidy around 14% of the affordable housing.
Yeah.
What is your proposal for that?
Well, everything has to be proportional. We still do not have an answer from the current administration or Hartford or the state of Connecticut as to what is the desired population for Norwalk. Can you just continue to build and build and build? Because we're talking about percentages. Percentages are relative to how much we're going to grow. Right now, we're at just around 100,000 people. And we have about 8,000 more apartments slated to be brought in. Now, those 8,000 apartments, they say about 800 of them are going to be affordable. But once again, are they really affordable? What are we really talking about affordable? To me, an affordable apartment for a working person is $1,500 a month and not $2,500. So my proposal is to increase that percentage as the population increases. Right now we have 100,000 people and it's about 14%. We need to do a little better than that. But it needs to parallel the growth, which is something that we're not seeing. That's what's most importantly. So right now at about 100,000 people, 14% in our community is not adequate. But you really need to look at what affordable housing is, what the actual numbers are. Once again, just to say that part of that 14% is $2,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Well, that's not affordable. That's not realistic for most people. So we have to have a realistic approach to what is affordable and apply that to our population growth. It has to continue to parallel. If we're going to grow, we need to grow in synchronization with the people that are there. And Norwalk always has been, since I grew up in Norwalk. I've been in Norwalk 64 years. And it's always been a very diverse community. It's always been all spectrums of economic levels. When I was growing up, my parents had 2 jobs each. They just came from Italy. I was the first one born here. And they struggled. They had minimum wage jobs. My mother was a school cafeteria lunch lady. And they struggled and they struggled and they struggled. And they managed to purchase a home that they're still in today. Yeah. And at this point, they're senior citizens. They're 87 years old. And the city is not doing enough for people in their situation, that they want to stay in their house. They've lived there their whole lives. I know many people whose parents don't want to go to assisted housing, don't want to go to senior housing. They want to stay in their homes as long as they can. And we need to look at that as well. So the entire plan for Norwalk has not been balanced. It's not been balanced to attract people that are going to stay here. There's been no balance for people's ability to buy homes. There's been no balance for senior citizens to live their golden years, in a happy, comfortable manner. So the balance of it has just shifted towards concentrating on building high, expensive apartments, and it's not what Norwalk needs. It's not what the people in Norwalk are going to benefit from.
Okay. About the taxes, property taxes, do you have any proposal? Are you going to increase the taxes around that proposal, or because we have I think a way for 4 years?
4 years, right? Taxes.
And what's going to happen after that?
Well, the tax increase was so large due to revaluation, or they say it's because of the revaluation of the homes. And I do agree with that. The homes have gone up in value. But, people need to understand that taxes are budget driven. It's what you spend and what's derived from those taxes. So there's 2 things we need to do. We need to really look at our spending and cut our spending where necessary. And we need to increase our revenue to the city other than just residential property tax owners. Residential property tax owners cannot bear the burden of the services necessary for the people that come here and everything that needs to be paid for. We have an aging city, so the infrastructure needs to be upgraded. Right now, over 70% of our tax revenue comes from residential property owners. That's not sustainable. We can't keep going in that direction. And this 4-year phase-in is going to be done just in time for our next reevaluation. So my proposal is that we do everything we can to put as many resources and energy as we can into bringing businesses back to Norwalk. Businesses that will shift some of the burden from the residents to the businesses. We have a wonderful community. We have a perfect setting in so many ways. With the transit system, with our waterfront, with we have a vastly educated population. We are just ripe for bringing businesses in, but we have not made enough emphasis on that. When I ran for mayor last time, 2 years ago, just before running for mayor, we lost 2 very big companies in Norwalk that employed an awful lot of people with good paying jobs that allowed them to get ahead in Norwalk. We lost Diageo and Frontier. And Diageo just moved to Stanford, so it isn't like they moved to a whole other state. So my proposal, and I've been saying this, to make a priority, is to bring businesses back to Norwalk that hire a broad array of people, but especially mid to high paying jobs where people can stay in Norwalk. And that will also alleviate the traffic we have, or cut off the increase in traffic of I-95 and the Merritt Parkway. So many people that work in Norwalk do not even live in Norwalk because they can't afford to. So it adds to our traffic concerns as well. So everything needs to have a much better planning stage where we have a big picture of what we're going to do, which direction we're going, and how to make this sustainable without detrimentally impacting the quality of life for the people that live there. Yeah. Whether you're a minimum wage person, whether you're, wherever you are in the spectrum, life is getting more and more difficult in Norwalk. So you're going in the wrong direction with that when that's happening. We need to improve the quality of life, and there's so many ways to do that. But first, we have to listen to the residents. We have to make sure that the residents that are in Norwalk are taken care of. There's just so many parts to this. But we need to change our revenue stream, and we need to do that quickly because we're going down the wrong path where we are.
Okay, so we're going to change a little the substance of the interview about the education. So how will you support school-facing budget cuts right now?
Well, right now the Board of Education budget has been done in a silo, in a enclosed system. No one had really any input other than the elected Board of Ed officials. The current administration and the mayor have not done a good job with overseeing the Board of Education. Now, as the mayor, you don't have a lot of input, but you certainly could chair the board meetings and you could certainly see what's going on. My proposal is to put together an ad hoc committee that's a committee of volunteers of teachers, parents, people from the teachers' unions, and have oversight over what the Board of Education does. Because we spend just about more on each child than anyone in the country. We spend an awful lot of money on our kids, but the money is obviously not getting applied correctly because of lack of oversight. Oversight is first and foremost to make sure we have complete oversight over the budget, over the Board of Ed budget. And we have about the same amount of students we had 10 years ago, but we've increased the Board of Ed budget by $80 million. So one has to question, why have we gotten to this point? And the results have been, marginal improvements over scores and SAT scores, and a very, very small amount. The last Board of Education meeting I attended, they put up graphs and charts of how well we're doing against Bridgeport, against Waterbury, against New Haven. But you know what? With the money we spend in our society, I seek nothing but excellence for our children. Nothing but excellence. Our children should graduate with a promising life in their future. So I say, if we're going to measure our successes in Norwalk against the big urban cities that are struggling, I want to see our measures against Darien, New Canaan, Greenwich. I want to see how well we're doing compared to our surrounding communities that are right around Norwalk, and that's important. I think we're settling in a lot of ways, and we're looking at numbers that really aren't reflective of where we need to be. So.
So do you think that the quality is better than quantity? In that case, for example, if you have like a teacher that's more competitive to another person who is right now teaching in our schools, or maybe the population of the school is not the one that is supposed to be like better for that kind of to compete with the other like Darien or.
I understand. Well, I'll say my daughter's a teacher. I have a family of educators who work in the system. So, I always joke around and say, when we have a family gathering, it's like a Board of Ed meeting. There's so many teachers in the room. All children have the ability to learn. Where we're spending money in the Board of Education is too top-heavy, too administrative. The best thing we can do for our children is have people in the classroom, paraprofessionals that understand the children's origins, where they come from, their background, get to know them, know their families, know the children personally. You are not going to get that from somebody sitting in an office at City Hall. You're just not. The most important thing we can do for our children is to make sure there's people in their lives that care about them. And, when you look at the expenses of some of these paraprofessionals, I know many of them, they really don't get paid a lot of money, and I think they should get paid more for certain. But that's where we should be shifting our resources, because children need caring, they need love, they need attention, and it's like children is like a garden. You have to maintain it every day. You have to make sure that the fruits and vegetables are growing every single day, and you can't do that once again from an office at City Hall. You need people in their lives to do this. So we have the best teachers, or our teachers are outstanding. There's no question about that. But so many of them feel as if they're being micromanaged and they're being judged at every minute, and it's really hurting morale amongst the teachers. Many of them are not happy. A lot of them have retired. But I will say, with this past budget battle, where they were threatening to lose over 100 educators at one time, 900 people came out that were really upset, to scream and argue and fight at this Board of Ed meeting. People haven't followed. 800 parents, teachers, students to fight against this. So, this is something that is just done wrong. And when the city of Norwalk is put in that place, it sends a message out to every teacher, every principal, every vice principal, every counselor that wants to come and work in a community that is the best of the best. They're going to say, maybe I want to rethink this, because am I going to have a job next year? Am I going to be able to spend my career in this school system? And you want to attract the best, you have to be the best. Mm-hmm. You have to be the best. So, I'm fearful that this has really hurt our image and our reputation as to a place to attract teachers and people that want to work in our school system. I mean, it's not a scientific notion here. If you are looking for a job and you're looking and you are the best of the best and you really are committed to your profession, which, you know, teachers don't do it for the money. Teachers, principals, everyone in our school system, they certainly don't do this for the money. They do this for the love and the dedication of what they're doing. And if you can't attract people to that, it's going to be a slippery slope at some point. So, you know, that's my position.
Do you have
there.
any educational international model that you want to apply here in our school, or which of the model do you realize that is amazing for, you know, to implement like a standard here in our Norwell education system?
Okay. Well, there's two trains of thought that I follow through, that I see, is that a lot of people think that applying the old technology of how we used to learn is the direction to go. And a lot of people think the new technology with programs and things like that end up being administratively heavy in the Board of Education is direction to go. But the truth of the matter is our community is ever changing. It's ever changing. So you can't do what you used to do and expect the same result. It's very different. But you can't go to the extreme and not recognize that programs and practices that worked should still be.
So right now I'm going to ask you about the security in Norwalk. What in your plan to improve safety in our city?
Well, I would say also one of the many things I say about Norwalk is that we have a fantastic police department. So many of these police officers have been there for years and years and years, and you know, I personally know them. We have an outstanding chief of police right now, deputy chief. We have a fantastic staff at police department, and we have a safe community. I think I could say that we have a wonderful community. We have a wonderfully safe community, and they are moving more towards neighborhood policing. We have some police officers assigned to certain neighborhoods, which is incredibly helpful. That's something I'd like to get back more to, where I want a little more education for our young people. I know that the school resource officers, the police officers that are assigned to our schools, they're like celebrities when I go someplace with them. They're doing a fantastic job of being in our children's lives. And that builds into a safe community. When people feel comfortable with the police officers, they feel as if they're part of the community. They feel as if they can confide in them is what's important. And that's something we can't lose, and that's something we have to grow. So safety in Norwalk, like I said, we have an outstanding police department. And, you know, when it comes to what they do, you know, I would say that they're doing a great job. Could we do more? Well, you know what? I think that our police department is also evolving and growing with the city. But you know, we've shifted funds away from the police department to fund shortfalls in other budgets. So you really need to set your priorities first off. You know, we can't go to police funding and remove it and claim we're moving towards a safer city. You need to support the basics in our first, and it's the police department, the fire department, our Board of Education, and our Department of Public Works. These are the four pillars of a safe, prosperous, community is to have that. And so we need to do a little bit more to make sure that the budgets that's allocated for our police officers and our police department remains intact and not shifted around and moved around. So there's a lot we could do about that as well. But I think we have a wonderfully safe community.
Another question about the federal agents, with, for example, ICE or FBI. Mm-hmm. How do you gonna are you gonna support like those agents, or are you gonna like how you say? For example, we have a situation like 2 months ago with I don't know Leonardo Chavez. I think it was Leonel Chavez. Yes. Yeah. So. Do they gonna have that situation again?
Well, I'd like to say this firstly, is that as mayor, your responsibility is to uphold state law, which is the State Trust Act, and is to make sure that the federal law is in place. I have no ability to change federal law or local law. When it comes to immigration issues, quick story. My father came here from Italy in 1958. He left my mother and my brother in Italy when he came here for 1 year to set up, get an apartment, get a job, And then he brought my mother and brother over. My mother still is not a citizen to this day. I grew up as in the immigrant life. When I went to kindergarten, I did not speak English. When I came home, I taught my mother to speak English. That's how she learned a little bit. My mother still speaks to me in Italian. My family, when my mother's side of the family came here, it was my uncles and my cousins, they all came here and lived in 2 little apartments. I understand the struggle. And when you approach anything, you have to go from a human perspective first. If we have people in our community, no matter where they come from, that are afraid, that's wrong. That's wrong. We need to build in safety and security into our community. And we have administration and politicians now that are not leading with facts. They're leading with fear for their political gain. We need to have a situation where we keep the community calm, we keep the community safe, and we need to keep the community from fear. I do not have the information as to that particular case. But if in fact there was a federal warrant for someone's arrest, as a mayor, you have no ability to override a federal judge's warrant. But at the same time, you have to recognize that you have to keep the people in this community safe, and that's on so many levels. You have to, most importantly, keep them safe from fear. So, as mayor, every person in the city, no matter where they came from, is my responsibility. It's my responsibility that they're not fearful. It's my responsibility that they thrive, that they have, an ability to go to work and make money and sustain their lives. Our immigration system is broken. And to say that it's broken means that at one point it worked. Our immigration system hasn't worked in a very long time. But we have to send our representatives to Hartford to fight for what's right. These are, Hartford and Washington. We've had so many missed opportunities to do this because both sides of the aisle, both political parties, are going with what's going to get me political favor over what's right for the people. And, that's, decades we've been talking about this. It has to end. We have to do something. And it starts locally. It starts locally. If you want to bring unity, it starts with the person in the mirror. Starts with the person in the mirror. And by yelling and screaming and standing at a podium for political gain is not creating unity. It's creating further division, and it's creating fear. So we have to start at that point, which is that you take care of every person that's in your community to the best of your ability.
For the immigrant community, how will you support Norwalk Latinos and immigrant community in Norwalk?
Well, there's a lot of areas you can go with that. First off, we need to ensure that people, like we were speaking before, aren't afraid. When it applies to our Board of Education, our school system, we're talking about more resources for hands-on with our children. So many of these children that come here, it's traumatizing to change your entire world and society. Even if you took a child that was raised in Norwalk, Connecticut, and sent him to Italy and put him in a school system there, it's a traumatizing experience for a child. But in Norwalk, it seems like we're putting children in our system too quickly. I would propose that we spend an appropriate amount of money within our Board of Education to really prepare children that come here that may not speak the language, that may not be grade level, which is a common thing we see, because we have one of the best education systems in the world, and if you come from a place that isn't funded, doesn't fund education well, these children may not be at their grade level. So we need to do better to make sure that they are able to mix in and adjust. That's one of the most important things we could do for our kids, so that when they graduate from high school, they have a promising future here in Norwalk or wherever they choose to go, to further their education. As far as supporting people in our community, it also goes back to housing, like you said. Building $4,000 a month apartments is not helping this community. It's not helping them at all. So, the current administration and the past administrations, not just in Norwalk, but everywhere. Because I'm never going to speak poorly of the people we have at City Hall. We have a wonderful group of people there right now. But I think we could do a lot better. The problem is that they're talking about helping, but are they really helping? Have they really done anything? No. Like I said, they stand at a podium and yell and scream about and create fear, but have they really put in place programs that are truly helping this community? We have so many wonderful nonprofits that are in place to help this community. And I will tell you, something that I see on a weekly basis. Where my business is across the street from St. Thomas Church. St. Thomas Church has a volunteer St. Vincent de Paul food bank. They have a food bank that people come to. The line is the length of the parking lot. Yeah. When we have people in our community that are hungry and are standing in line at food banks, that's not what this country is about. And I applaud the nonprofits that do this, because without them, I can't imagine where a lot of these people would be. I can't imagine where a lot of these people would be. My daughter was a teacher. She changed schools. But one school she was at had a larger group of kids that came from different places and a very low economic level. I would go to Costco and buy boxes of snacks because these kids would come to school hungry. So, as a society, not just Norwalk, as a society, you have children coming to school hungry, we are doing something wrong. And that needs to be fixed. That needs to be repaired. And it's not that hard. It really isn't. It's a question of priorities, where you want to spend your money. We live in an affluent community. We really do. So, there's a lot of money in Fairfield County. And to have kids come to school hungry, that's not acceptable.
So just another question about the economy. What do you propose to help a small business?
Well, I've had a small business for 43 years, and that's for certain. Well, every small business is a little different, but the number one issue I'm hearing from the small businesses that I see, that I talk to, and my haircut, and when I'm in South Norwalk is a parking situation. The people down there are very upset that they're losing business because people have to pay to park. People have to pay to park. So one of those ways I want to solve that problem is we just started a pilot program for residential parking passes. I'd like to see that residential parking pass situation be citywide. And if you're a Norwalk resident and you want to park in front of Nemo's and get a haircut, you can. You can. Another way we could do that, if another avenue we can go, throughout history, if you park someplace, you went into that business, you spent money, they would said validated your parking on a piece of paper, so you didn't have to pay for the parking. With the technology we have today, that should be in place. You should walk into a bakery in South Norwalk and say, I parked in front, I'm going to buy bread or whatever, can you validate my parking and do that electronically? So that's one way to help small businesses. But we need to do with small businesses, we need to do better as far as things like utilities. We need to make sure that they're getting a break in what they do. Property tax on equipment is painful. It's a big expense. I own an auto repair shop that has expensive equipment there, and I put off buying equipment because as it gets depreciated, I'm spending property tax on these pieces of equipment. So everything that we talk about to help small businesses has not been implemented. You could talk. They have a program where they give you $2,500 to make your storefront more attractive. That is wonderful. That's a wonderful program, but it's not enough. It's not enough, and we need to do a better job of bringing young people through our education system, through high school system, to perhaps be able to get jobs at reduced minimum wage in some of these places. I know someone that owns, I'm not going to mess what kind of shop, but he does. But when you have a high school kid that's got to put a scoop of ice cream in a cup and he's getting paid $15.50, for people that don't understand business, you double the Social Security, you're paying for workman's comp. By the time it's all done, you're paying over $20 for that student to be in your shop. So we need to come up with a better plan to get young people in this, to get their foot in the door, and at the same time, they're helping the small businesses. Many people I know that run these small businesses, especially in South Norwalk, I mean, people think that they're making a fortune. They're not. They're struggling. They're struggling. And to have help from high school kids or somebody sweeping the floor, and you're paying that kind of money, you can't do it. Everything is catered toward what's best for the city, what's best for the state, and we need to take a real look at what's best for the people that own a business and the people that perhaps they want to hire and grow. Like I said, every city, every part of town has its different issues with small business. My small business is very difficult and getting increasingly more difficult because of insurance costs from the state. They are so high in my business that at some point you say, is this even worth it? Is this even worth it? And I've been in business 43 years, and I will say from small business in Norwalk, I probably made more money 20 years ago than I do now. Okay. And that says an awful lot. So there's an awful lot we could do to help small business. We have to be realistic about it, for sure.
So your proposal would be maybe like expand the Department of Small Business in Norwalk,
For
or
sure.
maybe keep some credit tax on those kind of business?
Well, my proposal, once again, to make my priority to bring business development to Norwalk, and that's at all levels. We have very good programs to help people get small businesses started. There's some grants that start at $15,000, which these days isn't really much. That buys stationery and an office chair. These days doesn't really do much. So, but we need to expand that to bring real companies back to Norwalk. And when you bring real companies back to Norwalk, mid-sized companies, businesses where people make a good salary, that will allow them to go into the delicatessen at lunch and buy lunch. That will allow them to go into the local shoe store and buy a pair of shoes. You have to understand that the economic system has to be broad-based. You can't just start at the bottom, because there's not going to be money flowing to them. So we need to do a better job of bringing businesses in that will carry each other or complement each other. Right now, one of the things I hear from a lot of people over and over again, a lot of people are upset with all of the vape and smoke shops we have in Norwalk. A lot of people are not comfortable with them. There are many, many, many of them. And we constantly see it on a weekly basis on a paper about the police department closing them down for selling illegal products and that sort of thing. That is not complementing our city. That is not complementing our city, and it's not complementing the businesses that are around them. So my proposal is that we spend far more resources and energy on business development in Norwalk than we are now. And one of the things I want to do is separate. We have one department called tourism and business. I want to separate that. Tourism should be completely separate in many, many ways than business development. There's parts of our town that are just ripe for revitalization of tourism in South Norwalk, for sure. And that would also help the people in South Norwalk that have these small businesses that are sticking it out and struggling. And I would say if you talk to many of these people, the businesses in South Norwalk that I speak to, they're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. This is not a 48-hour-a-week job for them. Many of them almost live where they are. Yeah. So we need to support them, and you could support them by bringing in businesses that are going to bring money back to that neighborhood.
Okay, the last question is about: Are you okay if they are, like in Bridgeport, they're trying to bring a casino here? Is there any way possible to do also in Norwalk? Are you in favor?
I really highly doubt a casino would come to Norwalk. Bridgeport is very different than Norwalk. Bridgeport really is a big city, and it's been a big city. That definitely many parts of Bridgeport definitely need revitalization. I'm an advocate for bringing quality to Norwalk. Quality. Not that there's anything wrong with a casino, but most of the money leaves, and it's going to bring a lot of low-paying jobs. They're not high-paying jobs in casinos. You got cocktail waitresses, people dealing cards. One of my cousins was a dealer at Foxwoods. So it brings jobs, but it also takes away from the community in a lot of ways. Casinos take away from the community in a lot of ways. Sure, you bring in tourism, but there still is a lot of people in the community that spend money there. And casinos, as we all understand, they're not there for you to win. They're there for them to win. So you're taking money out of our economic system that could be put in better places. So I'm an advocate for once again, increasing the tourism and making, especially South Norwalk, a tourist destination, much like Mystic, Connecticut, or other places around. We have the wonderful aquarium that's there. We have wonderful parks. We have Stepping Stones Museum, Lockwood Mathers Museum. We have ferry boats to take you out on the Sound, go to Sheffield Island. We have so much, but it has not been coordinated correctly to turn it into a tourist destination. So as far as casinos go in Norwalk, I can't imagine it ever would be. I can't think we would ever even be able to make that sustainable if we wanted to. Especially, casinos are very regional. If we are going to open one in Bridgeport, to open one in Norwalk would be complete cannibalism. It would just be a bad idea. You're just going to split the gamblers in half. So I don't think that would be a good idea.
Okay. Last message for all your constituents and all for all the people that is here in our communities. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my message is very simple. I'm a lifelong Norwalker. I've raised my family here. My parents are still here. My friends are here. My extended family is here. I'm here running for mayor to represent us, all of us that live in Norwalk and call Norwalk home. I don't have a preconceived political position. I don't have an agenda handed to me from Hartford or Washington. I am going to listen to the people that live here to decide what kind of community you want. And my door will always be open, and I'm going to take the consideration of the residents of this community first before any other consideration. Because I'm not doing this because any other reason than I want to represent the people of this community that feel as if their voices are not heard any longer, that nobody cares what they want. And I want to bring transparency so every person in Norwalk, that especially taxpayers and people that live there, and others that live there, know where their money is going, know what we're doing in planning stage, making sure you're okay with the direction the city is going in. Because I would say at this point, if you ask 9 out of 10 people if they're happy with the direction of the city of Norwalk, as far as expensive housing and all different traffic, our education system, they're going to say they're not happy. They're going to say they're not happy. At least the people that I hear from every day. So that's why I'm running for mayor. I just want to represent the people here, and I want to build a better quality of life for everyone that calls Norwalk home. Everyone, from one level to the next. And I believe I can do that because I have the caring, I have the compassion, I have a great group of people that look at it the same way, that we want to bring Norwalk back to the people that rightfully own it, us, the people that live here. So thank you very much. If you consider, if you like what I have to say, please vote for me. Once I'm in office, my door will always be open. I will just leave you with that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having this today. It's really wonderful. I love the opportunity to be able to speak to people.
Thank you so much for having me as your presenter today. Nosotros estamos aquí en el Lente TV. Agradecemos a la oportunidad del Jacqueline Carvajal Peña, a todos los participantes que vean esta entrevista. Si tienen alguna duda, pueden mandarle en este correo que ven abajo al candidato a alcalde de la ciudad de Norwalk, si tienen alguna duda.
Gracias al apoyo de la Coalición Dominico-Americana de Connecticut Incorporated, LEAD, Latinos por la Defensa de la Educación y la Diversidad. Juntos vamos por más. Dental Solutions Norwalk, Dr. Elías Pimentel.